This is Anona's Worship, Grow, Serve, Live podcast for June 4th, 2023, the ReWritten Life Week 2, The Story of Jacob and Esau, with Dr. Jack Stephenson. This is one of our sermon series episodes produced by Anona United Methodist Church. For more information and video versions, visit anona.com/sermon series. If you're new to Anona and wish to learn more about our community, go to anona.com/welcome. And now for another great message.
And it's our sermon series that we're talking about how our story can be rewritten. It is the basic story of every story in the Bible. Instead of doing a scripture reading of a short verse today, I'm going to do several chapters. So let me lead into it a little bit. Those of you who are as old as I am might remember Sigmund Freud. He's been sort of discredited, and lots of new people, Erickson and Jung and others, have come along since. But he had a couple of things that have just always rung true and always stayed with us about the human story and the human experience. The first thing is, people were doing the best they could at any particular stage in life. You're doing the best you could with what you knew, with the maturity you had, the resources you had, the experience you had. You were doing as good as you could whenever you did what you might be ashamed of now, but then it might have been all you could have done. That's a powerful, powerful statement. Erickson, of course, moved that into life stages and did a lot more with that. But the second thing Freud said, very akin to that, is therefore at any moment understand a person is doing the best they can do. At any particular moment, given the stress, the emotions, the whatever, that might be the best we've got. And so instead of judging ourselves, let's give ourselves a little grace and a little understanding. The Eastern religions approach it a little differently. Buddhists and others say the butterfly does not disdain the ugliness of the caterpillar. In other words, you don't look back on your immature stupid and feel like that's who you are. You allow yourself to grow. You allow yourself to mature. You allow yourself to become. And so the stories in the Bible, and I'm going to go briefly through about 17 chapters. I'm going to go through Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. The stories help us understand because the stories are radically dysfunctional. If you read the stories of the Bible and say, I'm going to be like them, I'm not sure you're taking it right. I'm going to be like King David and have an affair with a woman who's bathing. That's what I'm going to do because it's what the Bible said, so I'm going to go do that. No, the stories show our dysfunction turning into a more mature person who becomes a blessing to the world. And that's pretty much the theme of the major Bible stories. So Abraham is beloved of God. He's called a friend of God. He comes to settle in the Holy Land. And he has a kid named Ishmael. They couldn't have kids, and finally he has a kid named Ishmael. Later, they have a kid named Isaac, and so Ishmael's kicked out into the desert with his mom, and Isaac gets to be the new firstborn son. That's very dysfunctional stuff, y'all. Now, history goes that Ishmael goes off and forms the Islamic nations, and Isaac forms the Jewish nations, and we see that history unfolding. I'm not sure how accurate or how true that is, but the dysfunction that was in the family then is dysfunction that we still have going on in the news today. So Isaac has a kid named Esau. Now, that's not a very popular name. You didn't go to school with a kid named Esau. Or Ishmael. Nobody said, hey, Ishmael, you know. Isaac had this hairy, brawny, red kid named Esau first. And then he had a kid named Jacob, twins, but born just after. In fact, he was grabbing hold of Esau's foot as he came out. Sorry about the grossness. So the stories of Jacob, which by the way means kid who takes other people's toys. The name Jacob means usurper or supplanter, or who takes something somebody else has or takes over what somebody else was doing. I don't know why we name kids Jacob today. It's kind of a harsh name. Well, does he take other people's toys? No, it's just named Jacob. Well, did you know that's what the name meant? But Jacob ends up being that guy. Esau, his older brother, is coming home from hunting, and Jacob really wanted to be the firstborn son. He's the secondborn son, but his whole early childhood is defined as wanting to be the firstborn son. I know that's weird, but let me tell you, you get into psychology, weird reigns. Nothing like weird to describe our story and who we are. And so Esau comes in, he's hungry, and Jacob says, "You want some beef stew?" And he goes, "Yeah, I could go for some stew." He says, "Well, you sell me your birthright." In other words, I am now the firstborn son, "and I'll give you this bowl of stew." And Esau goes, "Okay." And you got to wonder, he must have been awfully hungry. And so Jacob's mother is part of this dysfunction. She goes, "Well, I'm not sure that's enough. Listen, go into your father and get the blessing of being the firstborn son." Now, to do that, Esau's all hairy and such. So put some cow or sheepskin and wool over your arm and stick out your arm to your dad, and he will brush the fur and go, "Oh, Esau." And so he does. Jacob sticks his arm out and said, "Hey, I'm here for the blessing of being the firstborn son." Isaac goes, "Oh, Esau, you have my blessing." Well, this did not set well with Esau, and Jacob has to leave town. Now, you'd think this is not a great biblical character for us to lift up. So Jacob goes off. He gets successful. He has a lot of sheep, a lot of goats, a lot of camels, a lot of children, but he wants to go home. And so he's wondering, how is he going to do that? Because he's pretty much messed up home. So he comes to this river called Jabbok. And he sends all his wives and kids and goats all the way across the river. And then he kind of waits, and he's pondering, and he's thinking. And then God or an angel or Jesus or a glowing figure, there's a lot of debate as to who this figure was. Let's just say God or an angel, whatever. Doesn't matter to the story. What matters is that angel wrestles with Jacob. And they wrestle I'm Southern, we say wrestle. You want to go wrestle? He wrestles all night long until daybreak. And then God or the angel breaks Jacob's hip. Like, I'll give you a little something to remember me by. But he stops him there, because here's this guy who's really taken other people's stuff and been dishonest and selfish his whole life. He says, "You're not going to be that any longer." That's why Jabbok, the river Jabbok, and come down to the river to pray, and all the ways that we talk about come to the river. So Jacob comes to the river, and God says, Jacob is no longer your name. Selfish kid is no longer your name. You're named after this moment. And he names him Wrestles with God, which is pronounced Israel. Oh. And so from then on, The descendants are called Israel. And God says, if you want to see how I relate to people, look at my children, Israel. They will be blessed, and they will be blessed to be a blessing. And they will be called by my name. Wow. How does this relate to you and me? And the butterfly story and Freud and all that. The Bible stories try to show us that no matter what happened in our childhood, no matter what we did or was done to us, through the dark night of the soul, we can wrestle through with God and become something more, something better, something different, something new. God's promises are new every morning, and God always makes all things new, including you. And the Bible stories don't show all this terrible dysfunction at first to say, look how terrible the people of God are. The Bible stories show all this terrible dysfunction and devalued and misused. I mean, pick a story. David. Who gets to go fight the Philistines? His brothers. David's too young and scrawny to do that, so they put him out guarding the sheep. The prophet comes by and says, I think one of your kids is going to be great. Show me all your boys. And he parades all the kids. And they go, don't you have another kid? None of these are it. And, well, we got David, but he's out watching the sheep. You don't think about David. And David becomes King David. Why are these stories this way? Because it's you. Because you were a little kid and you got feelings and you feel screwed up and you feel somehow broken and somehow misused and you feel somehow abused. And it sticks with you like it's you. And all those scars and woundedness hold on to you as if they are who you are. And God comes to us in the dark night of the soul at the river of Jabbok and says, that is not your name anymore. That's the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's not your name anymore. What happened to you and what you did when you were doing the best you could, but it was stupid, that's not who you are anymore. You are made new. And that's what communion is given to us to do. Communion is given to us so that the body and blood of Jesus Christ form in us a new creature. Our dark night of the soul is met with a morning where we are not that anymore. And so we come to this most important moment of worship when you're about to go out and face the family and the life, and just like Jacob, you got to go home, but you screwed it up. All is not lost. You aren't what you were. You no longer are the sum of your bruises and faults and flaws. You have been given a new name, Israel, people of God. So keep your wrestling in the night with God. It's good for you. It's good for you. Don't stop doing it. Keep wrestling with God because you keep realizing it's you, not them. You can say that. You could just say to somebody you love, I realized it's me, not you. And they go, thank God. So hear this message, take it to heart, don't screw it up.
If you found this message meaningful, share it with others. To find more great episodes and stay up to date, subscribe to Anona United Methodist Church's podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere you find your favorite podcast shows. In addition, subscribe to our channel on YouTube and find the community on Facebook at facebook.com/Anona Church. You can join us on our campus in Largo, Florida, and discover new ways to reach out to the Pinellas County community. Be a part of the Anona Church family as we worship, grow, serve, and live.